All right, in this video, we're going to take the latest look at who has entered the transfer portal. Yes, Cody McMahon. In addition, we will preview the 4 games on Friday, which are North Carolina, Duke, Maryland, South Carolina. So that's in regional 1 and 2 of Birmingham, and then in Spokane, LSU versus NC State, and followed by Ole Miss, UCLA. Before we start, if you enjoy the content, then please consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a like. All right, let's get into this. So first off, just quickly, Cody McMahon is in the transfer portal after Ohio State went down to Tennessee in the second round of the tournament. She's an athletic 6-foot guard going into her senior year. Everyone's going to want her, essentially, because the one weakness of her game in previous seasons was her three-point shooting, but she's really worked and improved on that, obviously. So the previous season, she shot 23% from 3. This year, she shot 38% from 3. She's athletic, bullies herself to the basket. At times, she gets called out a little bit with charges and things like that because she gets a bit of tunnel vision going to the basket. But as I said, she's very talented, and there will be tremendous interest for her. I would say she's probably will be rated the first player in the portal, if you like, which is extremely subjective and depends on what your team needs. If your team needs a big, then it's probably right now, I would say Sarah Williams. Now on to the games. There'll be plenty of time to talk portal later after the tournament. So first off, let's take a look at Duke versus North Carolina. Duke is the favorite as they are minus 5.5. They've obviously played before this season as they are both in the ACC. North Carolina won the first matchup, which went into OT. That was at Chapel Hill. They won that 46-53. The thing to note is in that game, North Carolina did have a lot of turnovers. They turned over the ball 26 times, and Duke had 25 points off turnovers. Now, they had their rematch, and in that one, Duke got back and won the game 68-53. Once again, UNC struggled with turnovers. They had 20 turnovers in that game, and Duke had 25 points off turnovers. Now, another key factor in that game, Utsby was out, and as well Kelly was out, who were key players for North Carolina. In addition, it should be noted that Toby Fournier, who missed the second game of the tournament, well, Lawson confirmed that she will indeed play in the Sweet 16 game on Friday. As you know, I like looking at the core 4 stats, and when you look at in-conference play for Duke and North Carolina, you can see on offense, their numbers are similar. So Duke per 100 possession is getting 103 points per 100 versus North Carolina that's at 99.3. What sticks out is the defensive rating. So Duke is holding opponents to 79 points per 100 possessions versus North Carolina, which is opponents are scoring higher at 91 points per 100 possession. Looking at the numbers, it's clear why Duke is favored, but this game could go really either way. I think a key for North Carolina will be to limit turnovers, and if they can do that, then with Donarski, Utsby, and Navarre, their offense is strong enough, and they're hoping that they can really hold Duke, and Duke might struggle on offense. Because with Duke, it is not often real clear game to game where they're getting their points from. So in the last game versus Oregon, Ashlyn Jackson and Reagan Richardson, they stepped up going for 20 and 13. In the ACC Tournament Championship game versus NC State, it was Aluchi Akanawa who stepped up. But for Duke, their overall plan is get into opponents, cause turnovers, get the transition game going, and just roll from there. So it'll be a battle of wills and just seeing how they go, because North Carolina with Donarski and with Utsby, they do have experience. So I think this game will be tight. The next game is South Carolina versus Maryland. South Carolina is minus 17.5. That is the biggest favorite of the day. When you look at the numbers, you would assume that South Carolina would roll, as on defense, South Carolina only gives up 81 points per 100 possession versus Maryland and Big Ten play, they only give up 101 points per 100 possession. In addition, offense, South Carolina scores 114 points per 100 possession versus Maryland 107 points per 100 possession. But I will say the matchups are interesting because Maryland has bigger guards. They have Sellers, who's 6'2", and then Schmeichel, who's 6 foot, that will be matching up on obviously Raven Johnson and Tahina Paopao. I would assume that South Carolina would put Bree Hall on Sellers just to give her some trouble, or maybe they'll put her on Schmeichel. I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see how they match it up. Tibiasu is their other guard, and then on the inside, it's Fagan versus, I assume they'll have Dulce on Fagan. Really score, but she's athletic. That's why I assume they'll be on Fagan, and then they will put Kubek on Chloe Kitts. And all those matchups are fairly interesting. I can see how they play out. Depth is interesting as well. So on paper, you would think South Carolina has much more depth, which they do. So really on the bench, Maryland can only go to Mira McLean in the backcourt, and then in the front court it would be Sailor Poffenbarger filling in. And I think she'll match up well versus Chloe Kitts. When Edwards is in there, that might be a bit of a problem for Maryland. It really hurt Maryland when they lost Bri McDaniels with her knee injury, unfortunately. With South Carolina, in the last game, Fulwiley and Johnson, they struggled a bit as their plus minus for Fulwiley was minus 11 and for Johnson was minus 3. They really made hay on Indiana when they had their starters in the game. Now, don't get bent out of shape, South Carolina. I expect South Carolina to win this game. I don't know if they'll cover the 17.5 spread or not. I wouldn't be surprised if Maryland holds this tight for a while before South Carolina opens it up towards the end. The next game is LSU versus NC State. LSU is the favorite, minus 3.5. And if you look at the numbers, it's pretty clear why this is. So NC State's big three, so Zia James, Zoe Brooks, and Sanaya Rivers score well at 18 points, 14 points, and 11.9 points per game. And their effective field goal shooting percentage, 42, 49, and 45. But Morrow, Williams, and Johnson, they all score 18 or 17 points per game. And their effective field goal shooting for all three is over 50%. So they score more and they're more effective. LSU and NC State played in November at one of the Thanksgiving tournaments, and it felt like LSU just bullied them. They held them low in scoring. And if you look at their numbers as well in SEC play, LSU holds opponents to 94 points per 100 possession versus NC State, which is 92 per 100 possession. And then on offense, this is the scary part for LSU. If NC State has one of those games where they're shooting well, they can score a lot, averaging 110 points per 100 possession versus LSU 104 points per 100 possession. And that will be the real question of this game. Will LSU be able to bully NC State again and stymie their offense, or will NC State get off? Because if Rivers and James get off and just have one of those nights where they're hitting their shots, it can get ugly quite quickly for an opponent. But I would anticipate that LSU will cover this game and control it. But famous last words. Now, the last game is UCLA versus Ole Miss. UCLA is favored minus 9.5. It's an interesting matchup because UCLA has so much more size on Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a bit smaller but athletic. Can Ole Miss cause UCLA into a lot of turnovers? That's what they'll be looking to do. Put a lot of pressure and then swarm bets and just try to get UCLA frustrated, forcing the ball into her and then getting into transition. UCLA's plan is don't turn over the ball, throw it into bets, but if she's not open, throw it out and let our three-point shooters take shots. And if they miss it, we will crush them on the offensive boards with our size. I expect UCLA to win this game. Will they cover the spread? I'm not so sure about that. I would say UCLA wins by 6 or 7, but I don't think they're going to cover the 9.5. Anyway, now it's over to you. Your thoughts, your comments, your poison, all is welcome. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great night.